If you walk through police stations in Uganda today, you can still hear echoes of a troubling conviction, not spoken in English, but in the language of cold authority. In Mbale or Gulu, a constable records, suspect apprehended for attempted suicide. The tone is neutral, almost indifferent. And in that indifference lies a profound cruelty. How can a simple record condemn a plea for help? When a boy from Arua swallowed rat poison because he could not pay his school fees, the law labeled him a criminal. When a widow in Masaka sought to drown herself after losing her husband's land, the law gave her a file number. When a young teacher in Jinja stood by a bridge with a rope, the crowd summoned the police. Not out of concern for his life, but out of a fear of chaos. The law has trained us to treat the desperate as if they are merely disobedient. If the law were a person, it would be blind and proud, claiming, "My job is to preserve life." Yet he would stumble when faced with grief. He does not see that preserving life through punishment is not truly living. It is merely enforced existence in pain. He has never sat beside a mother as she tells her son that jail awaits if he tries to end his life again. He has never stood by a hospital bed where a nurse whispers, "Don't let anyone know what happened, or you'll be arrested." Our prisons house the living dead. A young man from Kamwenge sits on a wooden bench in a cell, his wrists scarred. His charge, attempted suicide. An officer dismissively tells him, "Next time, call for help." The irony is staggering. There is no sanctuary for grief in Uganda's prisons, only cold cement and silence. The law does not recognize trauma as evidence. It sees only paperwork. It is an old god demanding sacrifice yet never caring for the victim. When I first read Section 210, I imagined the ink on the page trembling, as if it wanted to protest its own meaning. Perhaps even ink carries a conscience. If it could speak, it might apologize for its harshness, but it cannot. It is trapped, just as we are, in a system that measures sanity by obedience. The Penal Code is a colonial relic, believing that shame can heal and fear can reform. Written before we understood that trauma can twist the mind like a tree in the wind, it fails to acknowledge that surviving sometimes looks like giving up. The law cannot feel, but we can. We are the ones who read those cold words and feel the pulse behind them. We are the ones who bury the victims twice, first in despair and then in shame. If compassion were a legal defense, Uganda's prisons would be far less crowded. Perhaps one day, the old man of the law will open his eyes. Perhaps the ink will finally fade, choosing defiance over obedience. Until then, we live under a system that confuses silence with peace and suppression with order. Reading the law is deeply unsettling when you realize it has never acknowledged your struggle. Its words are arranged in neat, cold paragraphs, unresponsive to the trembling of a desperate hand. Every letter performs its role, indifferent to the cries echoing outside the courtroom. Yet these unfeeling marks carry the power to label a person's profound agony as a crime. In Uganda's Penal Code Act, Section 210 states with chilling clarity, any person who attempts to kill himself or herself commits a misdemeanor. There is no footnote for trauma, no mention of mercy, and no recognition of pain. Only a clinical statement that treats a plea for help as a transgression. The law assumes that life and death are calculated choices, as if reaching the edge of despair were as simple as walking into a store. It ignores the truth that many do not wish to die. They only wish to cease suffering. It fails to see that for some, the rope symbolizes not only rebellion, but surrender, not a hatred for life, but an exhaustion from enduring it. The law is not wisdom. It is a record written in ink, and records can be rewritten. The Penal Code is a blind god, a relic of colonial history, unable to see, hear, or feel. It sits in a high, uncaring court, an old man who has never known tears, speaking only in the rigid tongue of must and must not. Rather than being grounded in compassion, this system prioritizes public order, enforced through silence. Bound by cold structures, it cannot hold the messy realities of the human heart. Instead, it attempts to impose order by criminalizing chaos. This legal system focuses exclusively on actions and their consequences. It fails to recognize the profound emotional agony that drives one to such a desperate act. Instead, it merely considers violations against state property or human life. Its lack of empathy is stark. This figure of justice is alarming, wearing a blindfold not to ensure impartiality, but because it cannot bear to witness human suffering. In this manner, the legal system functions as a tool for emotional censorship. It is designed to assess intent, measure premeditation, and weigh guilt and innocence based on conscious choices. However, despair is not a choice. It is a collapse, a state where pain overwhelms the will to survive. Yet the law fails to appreciate this vital distinction. It looks at a broken individual and asks, "What was your intent?" instead of, "Where does it hurt?"